who has arrived to Asia's World City. Good morning, my name is Peggy Tan. I am a founding class student of Urban Studies program of the Chinese University of Hong Kong. It is my pleasure to be the MC of today's event. We would appreciate it if you could put your mobile phone on silent mode. Thank you. First, we would like to invite Mr. Paul Zimmerman, CEO of Designing Hong Kong and Associate Partner of the World Urban Campaign by UN Habitat, to give us an introductory background of this event. Mr. Zimmerman, please.
Good morning, friends. I see many friends in the room, and I see also friends from Malaysia, from Holland, so we have attracted a bit of an international audience too, which is fantastic. Thank you. I'm just trying to give you an overview of what this whole thing is, the UN Habitat, the World Urban Campaign. It's something I got to know over the last 3 years, joining some of the sessions by the UN Habitat in various parts of the world, including in Nairobi, where the UN Habitat is based, and an Urban Thinkers campus 2 years ago that we used to try to fine-tune some of the drafts that you see today. And it's an interesting concept, and I'm happy to introduce it to you today and see how Hong Kong can be involved. And I don't know where my PowerPoint presentation is. Okay, it's here. The other one. Okay, this is the one I want to do. So this is the World Urban Campaign. It's a campaign to change our urban future. And this is how the United Nations sees it. It's a campaign to define the city we need in the world. We have a lot of partners now, and this is what we call the Civic Society Partnership, because the UN is a member state. It's a cooperation of countries that is led by the bureaucracies of those countries. But on the side of it, the World Urban Campaign is established to make sure that civic society has a word into whatever the United Nations as countries are going to decide on next year in Quito in 2016. In Hong Kong, I'm really happy that the Chinese University has come on board really as a lead partner, providing the venue and a lot of the thinking behind this. And I'm definitely very happy that me, Cam, and Hendrik Kiebert have put so much time in making this whole thing happen with the entire team here. But we have a lot of partners here coming up, and we hope that this will grow. Today is Urban Thinking Campus 1 for Hong Kong. And the Chinese University wants to continue this. They don't want this to stop. They want to make sure that this is a platform that is going to grow in Hong Kong as a platform for debate about how we can get a better city development. Going back to UN Habitat, 1975, the UN established this program, and it was to promote socially and environmentally sustainable human settlements and to achieve adequate shelter for all people. In 1976, it was UN Habitat 1. The first meeting, all the nations were together and met each other to discuss this. And the real issue that was on play at that time was the uncontrollable urban growth. It was seen as a threat to the environment, it was seen as a threat to human beings to have a proper life, and that was held in Vancouver, and they came up with a Vancouver action plan outlining some strategies. So this is the first time the United Nations sat down and says, the urban issue is a real issue. The urban areas are important to deal with. We've got to think about it. We can't just have urban areas grow without any plans. We've got to coordinate around the world how our cities are going to grow. In 1996, there was a second human habitat in Istanbul, and it was kind of a stock take. What have we achieved since Habitat 1? As you can imagine, there was a lot of disappointment. There was basically a realization that the deterioration of shelter and living conditions, and really people start looking at housing and how people live, had really deteriorated around the world, and that there has not been that much progress from the Habitat 1. So they came up with about 100 commitments and about 600 recommendations. And Habitat 3, which is going to take place next year, is going to stock take and says, what have we achieved since Habitat 2? The Habitat 2 objectives, the twin goals, were to ensure adequate shelter for all and to guarantee sound development of human settlements in an urbanizing world. So the trend of urbanization was clearly recognized. People moving out of rural areas to the urban centers. The Habitat 3, let's see the slides are just to confuse you. Habitat 3 is the kind of the first discussion about urban development, and it's the first conference from the United Nations after the agreement on the Sustainable Development Goals. That the development agenda is going to be set for post-2015. And those discussions are on, and they are going to be finalized now, this year. So, and what is the objective for Habitat 3 in Quito next year is to set a new urban agenda for the 21st century and to focus more on what is the infrastructure, the policies and the strategies that can help effectively harness the power of the forces behind urbanization. So it starts to look much more at the institutions and the policies and the legal frameworks to make sure that things can happen. The Sustainable Development Goals, very small print, won't go into all of them, but there are 17 of them, and they go from make sure people have water, make sure that cities are resilient, that countries are resilient, that we're going to deal with climate change, and for the first time, Goal 11 is in here, which says that make cities and human settlements inclusive, safe, productive, resilient, and sustainable. So, sounds like a bit of a mouthful, but it is. But that's how it works when you try to come up with a statement that works for everybody around the world, for all cities and for all countries that have to sign up on these things. So this is kind of the Sustainable Development Goal that is related to cities that is being agreed on. So how are we going to put that into play? Cities are the 21st century's engines of growth. In 1950, less than a billion people lived in cities. They contributed about 3 trillion to the economy. 2010, about 3 billion people live in cities. 30 trillion is added to the world economy. And by 2030, about 5 billion people, close to 70% of the whole world, will live in urban type cities. And it will deliver about 90 trillion worth to the economy. Largest cities in the world, those are they expected to be these 50. And the very last one, the smallest, Hong Kong, is still one of the world's biggest, one of the 50 by 2025. So that's us. Now cities are not only centers for growth and economic development, they also concentrate poverty, risk, and potential strife. They concentrate economic opportunities, so people flock to the cities and they create their own living environment, but they're also incredibly susceptible to risk. You have a lot of people together in a very small space. When you got flooding, a lot of people get killed. You got an exploding warehouse in Shenzhen, a lot of people get killed. The cities are concentrated risks. They're vulnerable. There's risk of technology, as we see in Shenzhen, or we saw in Bhopal, or that we saw in Japan. These are the cities that risk, the risky cities. Urban agglomerations also are contributing a major contribution to climate change. I mean, we have our carbon footprint as cities that we have to do with. We can resolve it in the cities and reduce our carbon footprint. We can contribute to the change of climate. The death of urban areas, whether it is Wuhan here or it's Detroit, cities that only live and grow, they also die. And they die either by strife and war, or they die because of economic change, as we see in Detroit. And we have to deal with that. I just got back from Holland, and there is a discussion of how to take houses out of some of the villages and cities to make sure that there is no blight developing in these areas, and how to concentrate people back to the centers. It's not a Hong Kong problem. Cities are also centers for strife, as we know very well in Hong Kong. They're also centers for new ideas, mobilization of the community, bringing change and invigorating change throughout society. That's also what is done in our cities. So what could the Sustainable Development Goals deliver by 2030? And some ideas that are there. We need education, healthcare for 5 billion people in the urban areas. We need to lift 1 billion people out of slums into secure housing and adequate services around the world. 600 million new meaningful jobs have to be created in city areas to make sure people have jobs. We've got to have resilience. We've got to create a 90 trillion urban economy to carry this world. And we've got to address all these issues. Housing is, of course, a big one. And, modern housing, innovation in housing is a big one. make sure people have water, and water supply, and drainage, and all those issues are dealt with. Make sure we have access to food. We need food. It's not just about the urban area, it's about the rural linkage. We can't say just us here. We have to recognize that our food supply is from the rural areas around us. We're going to make sure we have jobs for lots of people. We've got to have innovation, we've got to have grassroots innovation, and we've got to have modern infrastructure that rethinks how we do things today. This is just around the corner, just across in Bogota, and we're doing something similar in Guangzhou with our bus systems there. We need clean manufacturing, we need clean energy, and basically we've got to try to find a way of ending extreme human poverty, increase prosperity, and definitely reduce inequality, which is a big issue for Hong Kong. So those are some of the sustainable development goals we're trying to achieve and that we need to achieve. And it's recognized around the world that cities like Hong Kong and cities around us in Asia are an important factor in that. We are growing fast, we're developing fast, but we have opportunities to build the new cities. Now, how are we going to work today, and how is the how is that working? The member states are meeting, and they developed a document called the New Urban Agenda. I was there in Kenya when they had a meeting. It's very disappointing. The debate between countries is tough, and you see some inspiration coming in from countries like Sweden and France. You see other countries blocking issues. There are countries that are worried because they think that the cities will become more powerful than the nations. So you have all this politics coming in. So the shaping and forming of the new urban agenda is not necessarily an inspirational process, but that's on the left. That's the bureaucracy around the world trying to get something done, which is tough. So what's being done, and that has been starting on the side of the whole UN process, is trying to get the community to discuss things and try to come up with their own document, the city we need. And what's the hope is that the text of the city that we need is going to be powerful by the time Quito takes place, so that the nations are going to copy it, basically. They won't be lazy. They pick the ones that have been done by others, and people have already agreed on that. They feel comfortable that they are agreeing on them. So the UN management teams are very happy that we are organizing this kind of urban thinker campuses to make sure that this document has validity, and this document is strong enough it can seem to be produced by civil society. So the city we need principles. You've got your homework. You've all got your booklets. They look a bit more than pie, I'm sure. You can't read the first one. The city we need is inclusive, human scale, resilient, economically vibrant and inclusive, unique identity, a sense of place, safe city, not something we worry about in Hong Kong very much. It's a healthy city, and one we don't worry about in Hong Kong too much, but there are many places around the world where this is a real concern. It's affordable and promotes the right of the city, and that is what we worry about in Hong Kong. And the city is well planned, financed and governed. Some people may disagree that Hong Kong is well governed or badly governed, but I'm not going to go into the political discussion. But from a global perspective, Hong Kong is a good city. We're doing well here. I'm not going to go into the details. They're in the booklet in terms of what does each of these mean. And there is a roadmap, some issues that are focusing on what policy, legislative frameworks are we going to need to achieve this. Now, Hong Kong, when I have these discussions and you visit, you go to these places and have these UN debates, the one thing stands out. One, Hong Kong is not there because we're not a nation. And as a city in China, we're not part of the Chinese cities that go to these meetings. There's a mayor's conference coming up in China. Hong Kong is not invited. We don't have a mayor. So Hong Kong is kind of unique. So Designing Hong Kong, Paul Zimmerman shows up, and Designing Hong Kong is the only Hong Kong reference in these meetings. It's kind of funny. But I enjoy that, of course. But it's disappointing to see that Hong Kong isn't there. But the conversations always are these issues, and Hong Kong is successful. Low unemployment, low private car ownership, high trip rate for walking and public transport, long life expectancy, low crime rate, and a high GDP per capita. People look at Hong Kong from around the world on a global basis, and all the issues that I've just presented to you, Hong Kong is very, very, very good. So what I then have to explain, and that's of course the issues that we all now know about, is our challenges, the Gini coefficient, income disparity, spatial disparity, the exuberant wealth on one side and poverty on the other side. But narrowing job base, the lack of entrepreneurial opportunities, the 20-year freeze on starting salaries for people in Hong Kong, unaffordable housing, lots of street frontage for small businesses to get going with a street frontage. These days, if you want to get going, you've got maybe a little office upstairs in a factory building. But the old street frontage shop houses have disappeared, and that's a big loss to people who want to be entrepreneurs. There's a discussion about the hegemony of our land resources by very few families. We've had our umbrella movement that made that very, very clear. But all of this is complicated by our ongoing integration with the mainland. There's no city in the world having to do what we're doing, the integration with the mainland. So this is complicating the discussions for all of us. So today, I must say, we have made an undemocratic decision with the three organizers sitting in a room, it's Hendrik, me, Ken, and myself, and we have decided that the theme for Hong Kong is the question, who has the right to Asia's world city? And we've also decided on these themes for the sessions that are going to take place in these separate rooms. World city versus great city, mainland integration, public space in a dense city, speculative versus affordable housing, and land hegemony. So we hope you can find your ways. Your ticket has a little red text on it, and it says Urban Thinkers Session, column, and then it says whatever you're doing. I'm doing mainland integration, and I will be in that room over there later on for the sessions and to discuss with you. So, today, this is your job. If you're a city changer, you like to change the world, you have to stay in the city first. And so this is the job we're expecting from you. The first session are these kind of questions. What will our city be like? What is the things that we have to avoid? What is the city we need in Hong Kong? That kind of discussion, we wanted to generate some text and then ask the question, what do we need to do to get there? Then after the break, we'll ask you to think about this. If we take a text back to the UN, if we want changes in that city we need document, if we want changes in the text that the nations are going to agree on in Quito in 2016, what do we want in there? Because ultimately, if we want to get things done in Hong Kong, and there is a document approved at the UN level, then we can say, but it says in UN Habitat 3 document, X, Y, Z, may create more equality in the city. Then we can refer back to that, and it gives us leverage, gives grassroots leverage to get things done in the city. So, although it was not a pie in this document, it is an important document to make sure that if we want something in there, we fight for it to be in there. So, anything missing? Should we change something? Should we change the roadmap? Keep it simple, because we can only punch through that process if we keep it simple, but see if there's something that we want to be able to do with that. And then, and that's really Ada Wong, who's with you today, has really asked for this, make sure that we do, is that we also focus on how are we going to build the city we need in Hong Kong? Are we going to take this campus format forward? What else can we do in Hong Kong to make sure that Hong Kong is going to change and move forward, and that civil society is going to drive that in a positive, constructive way, and we move out of some of the negativity in the relationship that we've had so far. So that's my setup. Are you a city changer? Back to you.